Hello, hello. This is Yuri with Moving Sales Professionals and our podcast. Today we have Greg Maher joining us, most recently with Berger Allied as a regional manager and with over 50 years of experience in the moving industry. How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing well. It's a sunshiny day here in Southern California. We may get a little more rain later, but right now it's beautiful outside. Good day to be outside.
Yeah, it's a little, rainy here in Maryland. So yeah, a little. Yeah, we had a little like frozen rain coming down yesterday, so that was fun. But Greg, tell us, how did you get started in the moving industry? What has brought you? I know you're at this point closer to retirement, or rather at retirement versus starting out, but tell us how you got here. What have you done over the years, and what can you recommend the newbies that are entering the market in general?
I, like many of the people that are in our industry, started because of family. My father and two of my uncles were movers. Both worked local and ran cross country. Made my first road trip with my father when I was 8. Spent most of my career in the moving and storage industry, from being the local helper to driving tractor trailers across the country. 1983, I took my first job in the office as a local dispatcher. Moved up to a regional short haul dispatcher for Grable Van Lines. Then worked out of their corporate office in Wausau, Wisconsin for a period of time as a regional scheduler. Moved on to work for Dirks Moving, and which is Dirks Logistics now, in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was the operations manager. We grew the company from $2 million to $13 million in about 12 years. I moved over to Atlantic relocation, was there about 3 years, and we grew from 7.5 to about $9.5 million in revenues. Then in 2006 came to California as a general manager for Berger Transfer, and we brought this office back to profitability. It had only been profitable once in the 9 years that Berger owned it prior to that, and it has had a real consistent profitability. And the last 6 years was in charge of Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Southern California for Berger Allied, and also on their hauling committee and capacity committees for corporate functions and stuff, to assist the company-wide in recruiting and retaining drivers and growing revenues, which I've always had a pretty good track record of.
That's great. So what would you say, your experience obviously over the years with the markets and with the current housing situation and stuff like that, what would you say, what is your feeling on it? What's your read?
I think that having lived through a couple of these things in my lifetime, where the economy is turned down, especially when the Fed makes a conscious decision to cool it off, to kill inflation, which has to be done. There's a lot of anxiety in industry, and movers are no different. A lot of the movers don't have a lot of business background. I personally didn't until I got into the business, but you have to make a plan when you know that there's a downturn coming, and it is 95% of the time either becomes a defensive plan or an offensive plan, as I like to call it. A defensive plan is, you control costs, you hit the vendors up for additional cost considerations and drive down expenses. A lot of people cut staff, stop recruiting drivers, and then there are a group, which typically are the companies that have been growing with fairly good consistency, who take a contrary opinion to that and look to continue to hold on to their staff, and if they can, continue to recruit drivers. And that means that you have to change the focus of your marketing and of your ability to generate jobs, probably pricing, and try and build your company up, because when we come out the back end of it, which it will, it always does. In the past, we have not recovered our driver count that we lose during the downturns. The companies that can either hold on to their driver count, their capacity, or increase it are the companies that do well and take full advantage of the upswing in business when it comes back around. And that is a personal opinion. I mean, obviously people have contrary opinions to that, but that's my view of the world.
So yeah, in another way, once again, it's going back to things that I always keep on saying, is that creativity is something that we need a lot of in this industry, especially with the changes with the market, with everything else. So you and I have talked about offense versus defense. So, and you told me that you're a big fan of the going on offense versus sitting and making those cost cutting moves and things like that. Why is offense your preferred method?
I came up through the operational departments, and it has long been my belief that work follows capacity in our industry. If you have capacity, you can attract work. You might not get it at the price that you want, but you can attract work. To cannibalize your company and knuckle down and do all the things that people do to try and weather a storm, if your financial situation is such that you can't afford the cash flow to get through by taking the offensive, that's a different conversation, and something that you have to rectify in advance. But if you can at least break even and build your staff up, you can find work to do for your trucks. It might not be traditional household goods. It might not be local moving. It might be office and industrial. It might be international. It might be FF&E projects. Those are all things that, or white glove home delivery, those are all things that you probably should have in your portfolio of business anyway. But if you don't, and you're looking for ways to expand your company, or at least not go backwards, then you have to think outside your box and look for those things. You can't move if people don't sell their homes. You can't do moving, except for renters, which are not the prime customers or the biggest dollar customers involved. Homeowners are the ones who are the backbone of the industry.
So once again, it seems to be a common theme, as you guys can hear. Everybody, obviously, I get those questions all the time. Well, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen to market? And almost every person that we bring on with years of experience, whether it's on a corporate side or whether it's on the side where it talks about realtors, or it's on the side of bigger moving companies that have been around for a long time, everyone is basically saying, think outside the box, diversify your streams of income, diversify the type of jobs that you do, and just in general. And that's how we weather. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that caused us here at Moving Sales Professionals to do this podcast in the first place. We were looking for new ways, frankly, to reach you guys. We wanted to get our name out there so that you knew who we are and the kind of work that we do. And, all of that together, between the things that you as moving companies do and things that we do here, being a call center for moving companies, we all need to find new ways. All need to find new revenues. And whether we're doing that today or going into the future, that is the way of the future, is being able to diversify and come up with creative thinking and thinking outside of the box. So, yet another person that has this basically the same line of thinking, and instead of shutting down, looking for different ways and different revenues, just sit down, come up with ideas, and just try to knock them all down. Let's try this, let's try that, try different things that will get you to the point where realistically it's something that's going to help you in this downtime, in the slow time. And it's also something that's going to, once the slow time passes, and it always does, it goes in cycles, so when it finally does pass, it's going to aid you in the future. So you have people that have been in industry much longer than me. I mean, in this case, you're talking to somebody that's been in the industry longer than I have been alive. Certainly, I'm going to be 40 in March. So, and he's saying the same thing that me, relatively a young buck with 20 years in the industry. I'm saying the same thing, and I'm seeing the same thing.
I think it's important to talk about when you decided to do your podcast. Did you communicate why you wanted to do it to your employees, to the
Absolutely.
rest of the team, to keep them informed?
Absolutely.
Food and storage industry is very entrepreneurial. A lot of individuals running companies, and they have a tendency to believe that they make the decisions, and because they were an employee probably previously, they take the orders that the boss says. But especially when you're changing the dynamic of your company, I think it's hugely important to make sure that you communicate that your plan and get the input from the employees that it's going to impact. Because talking to the drivers ahead of time, we're going to have this work. I worked a lot with contractors, and you had to explain to them that we're cutting the pricing, which in effect cuts your pay in order to get more jobs to carry us through, to do different kinds of work that you're not used to, or the dispatcher's not used to putting out on the street. The customer service people aren't used to dealing with those varying kinds of customers, so that when they start coming in, if you're effective, that you can, they won't be surprised. Your customers won't get this person on the phone that doesn't know what you're talking about or what they're talking about, and that you can kind of get the team behind you to help you build your company, because no one person builds a company. It takes help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes people that have the same vision as you. I mean, with this podcast, it's not really affecting anything that any of my salespeople on the floor are doing, in the sense that they don't have to do anything extra. It's mainly I have to do things extra. My advertising person has to do things extra. My GM has to do things extra in terms of us, frankly, reaching out all of the avenues, whether it's people on LinkedIn, where you and I connected, for example, right? Or whether it's people on Facebook and all these different groups that we're part of. It's getting our name out there, so that, frankly, Moving Sales Professional becomes a household name in the industry, and we should be. And just in general, the kind of work that we do, because we do honest work, and we work only with companies that generally and truly care about building a brand, that care about their customers, and want to build a staying place for themselves in this industry. It's the same thing that we're doing. I mean, different avenue, but we're here for that. And this podcast is not just certainly it's going to be something that's going to attract clients to us, which is great. And that's one of the goals of the podcast. And the other thing is we're here to educate. We're here to bring professionals, seasoned professionals that have been in the industry for many, many years, from various avenues, whether it's somebody that's, dealing with a consumer agency, or whether it's a moving company, different avenue, different sides of moving, different sides of the world. We're in different markets now. I mean, we're in Canada, we're in UK, we're here in the United States, of course. We are 100% US based. So all of that stuff is important. And ultimately, it's going to lead to more work for my salespeople. The other thing, frankly, if our viewership gets to a point where where companies that are related with moving industry contact us and say, hey, put our logo in the background. we're going to pay you X amount of dollars. Great. That's going to give us money for advertising budget. That's going to give us, frankly, give me money to give my employees raises, so that we can pay workers more, which in turn is going to attract higher professionals that we're looking for, that we're looking to hire. That's important.
Right. And it's important, and to circle back just a little bit on that, is that when someone calls in and mentions the podcast, you don't want your employees to go, what?
Yeah, that too.
So it needs to be pushed all the way down as far as you can into the group. And one of the things I always admired about Berger while I was there was that we made a concerted effort to push the financial issues and involvement in the revenue and expense reports down to as far down into the employee base as we could, so that the folks knew that the impact that they had on the company was long term, and that we were counting on them to help with that. If they can see, if you start a new product line and they start seeing revenue coming in from that product line and know that it's helping the company, then it reinforces what ownership and has wanted to be doing, because you have employees that are involved and committed.
Absolutely. And you want them to feel like they're part of something bigger. And of course, everybody here knows the goals of the organization. And of course, it's so important to have everybody buy in. I mean, we're all, so to speak, clogs in this big machine that we're trying to build and run and everything else. And it's something that you want people to be happy about what they're working with. Like, to us, culture is so extremely important. It's more important than production, realistically. I mean, we have very good salespeople, but them believing what we're doing, them supporting the company's image, and in general what we're trying to build is extremely important. Somebody can be a great salesperson, but if they don't support what we're trying to build, if they don't see the big picture, they don't support training classes that we bring in, if they don't support new people asking them questions, if they treat them like they're their personal inconvenience, that's not okay. That's not something that we support at all. So, but anyway, we can talk about this for a long time, but our time, of course, is limited, because we want you guys to remain interested in what we have to say. So, Greg, once again, thank you very much for joining us for the podcast. And as always, the world moves on its own. Let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very much for joining us for our podcast, and have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.